A woman's death is not a silent burial. Some deaths are an eternal cry, a wail that rises from the depths of the earth, silenced by history. Today I will take you into the dark pages of the Tokugawa period. We will uncover the hidden face of a society that buried its own wives alive for the sake of untarnishing samurai honor. This video tells one of the most horrifying and little-known stories in Japanese history, the punishment of burying alive the wives of samurai who were thought to have lost their honor. Welcome to 17th century Japan. It's an age when war has ended, but spirits still live in armor. The Tokugawa shogunate rules Japan with iron discipline. Everyone knows their place. The peasant is a peasant, the merchant is a merchant, and the samurai is a shadow, silent but always friendly with death. Samurai no longer live on the battlefields, but between castles and palaces. But in their minds, a war still rages, the battle for their honor. Samurai are not just a class, they are a form of faith. Samurai are not just a class, they are a form of faith. Loyalty, obedience, humility, and absolute honor. A samurai can die for his master, but he can also commit suicide by disemboweling himself if his honor is dishonored. Seppuku. That's how sharp, that's how rigid a world we live in now. But it's not just the samurai. The samurai's wife is also part of this system. Yes, she is a woman, maybe not a warrior, but her duty is also clear: to be honorable, quiet, obedient, and loyal. For a samurai, the behavior of his own wife is a reflection of his own character. A look too long, a word too sincere, a rumor too widespread, ... The result? Samurai honor is tarnished, and sometimes it is not cleansed by words, but by the darkness of the earth. Because in this society, shame doesn't just kill a woman, it brings down her family, her lineage, even the face of her master. That is why punishment is not delayed. Even if the woman is not proven guilty, suspicion is enough. And the method of punishment? USHI-ZUMI ... That is, burying her alive in the ground. There's no trial, no defense. Even tears are useless, because here the woman is not a person. She is a shadow of samurai honor, and when that shadow is stained, the earth waits to swallow her silently.
Throughout history, many societies have tried to wash away the punishment for crime with blood. But in Tokugawa, Japan, some crimes were beyond words. Maybe not the crime itself, but the shame. And that shame had to be buried in the ground. Literally. In Japan's murky justice system, there was a type of punishment whose very name spread like a whisper: Yushizum. That is, buried alive. This punishment was applied especially to women, samurai wives, ... palace servants, even young girls, sometimes victims of a mere rumor. There was no justice. There were no courts. It was a ritual of burying a stain that needed to be erased from the public eye. The woman to be punished was often dressed in white, as if she was being taken to a wedding. But this was not a wedding. It was a funeral. The whole dug was usually near the temple. The ceremony was quiet. Most of the time it was done at night, because to display the shame in the daytime would be even more shameful. The woman was placed kneeling in the pit. Her hands were tied and her head bowed. With the blows of a shovel, the earth would be thrown over her. No, this was not a quick death. The earth would slowly rise up to his chest. His breath would get short, and sometimes his last look would not be at the sky, but into the eyes of the master who buried him. Some documents say that this practice was seen as a religious purification ceremony, as if the soul was being cleansed of shame. It was as if the earth was swallowing sin, but in reality, it was only a form of silence. The woman had no voice. She had no defense, and her grave was often unmarked, because this punishment was not just the burial of a body, it was the complete erasure of a name, of a being. Burying, it is not only imprisoning a body in the ground, it is also silencing a voice, a thought, a being. But not all silence is surrender. Some women did not submit to this terrible order. Maybe they did not fight. They did not take up the sword, but they had another weapon, the pen, today in small temple archives outside Tokyo. Among dusty rolls of paper, secretly written farewell letters have been found. Many of them had no names, no dates, but the lines were so powerful. It was as if that woman's tears had dripped onto that paper. Some letters were written to her children. "Remember me, but don't be afraid. I'm not a bad person. I just kept quiet. Maybe that was my biggest mistake."
Others to their husbands. "I am buried in your honor, but have you ever thought of my honor?" And some were never sent, just sewn into kimonos, buried with the body. One woman he disappeared into the earth, but their words echo centuries later. Thanks to these letters, we know that these women were not just victims. They were also witnesses. Witnesses to the cruelty, blindness, and injustice of this order. They left behind silent screams. And today, we hear those screams between the lines. Perhaps the most powerful resistance in history is the struggle to exist without making a sound. And these women, they fought that struggle at the cost of their lives. Every dark practice has an end, but some end quietly, just as it began. By the late 19th century, Japan was changing. The Meiji Restoration had begun. As the winds of modernization blew, legal systems and new understandings from the West were entering the country. And Yushizume did not fit into the spirit of this new order. There is no date when it was officially banned. No circulars or articles of law have been found. Because this punishment was never an official law anyway. It was a shadow ritual of oral tradition where honor and fear were intertwined. Maybe it was not banned, but it was forgotten. Society slowly erased the shame from its memory. It was not talked about, not written about. It was not included in history books. Because shame was a common wound, not only of individuals, but of a culture. Even today in Japan, it is considered taboo to talk about it. The word Yushizume is almost never pronounced. Even some modern historians claim that this practice is a myth. But we know those graves were really dug. Those letters were really written. And those women were really buried. They were just forgotten. Perhaps telling this story allows us to hear not only the past, but also the voices of the present that have been silently ignored. Because some stories are kept alive not only by those who survive, but by those who remember. Yushizume. It started as a method of punishment, but over time it became a mirror. In that mirror, we began to see not only Tokugawa Japan, we began to see all women who were forced to remain silent. Tragedies that took place behind ostentatious palaces. Lives caught between obedience and shame. And the silent cries that society ignored. Today, perhaps no one is buried alive. But there are still those who are silenced. Those who are ignored, suppressed, ignored. That is why this story does not only belong to the past. It is also a mirror of today. When a woman's voice is silenced, when an objection is ignored, when a shame is placed on someone else's shoulders. Yushizume is dug up again. The earth was a symbol. But to tell, to remember the forgotten, is to dig the earth. This video was told to commemorate not only the samurai women who disappeared, but all the lives that were suppressed with them. Maybe today their names don't exist. He doesn't even have a grave. They have stories now. And as you watch this video, their voices have come to life, if only for a moment. Because true immortality is to be remembered. History is not only a tale written by the victors. It is also an elegy hidden in the silence of the losers. The bodies of samurai women buried in the ground. It is in fact the repressed face of a culture. Yushizume is not only a dark practice of Japan, it is a symbol of all society's systems based on silence attributed to women. They could not speak, but we can. They wrote but could not send. But we can hear them. Maybe we cannot change the past. But telling the past can change the present. Because true justice is established not only in judicial halls, but also in memories. And every remembrance unearths another grave. Perhaps those who lie beneath the earth whisper to us, "You couldn't save us?" But it is up to you not to silence others. This video is not only the story of a punishment, it is also a call, a voice for the voiceless, the silenced, the forgotten. And maybe every story that comes out of the darkness opens the way to a new light. They were silent, but now we are telling. And this narrative will never be silent again.